I got to change the way I eat. I know sugar is not good for us. I know like chips and
Mhm,
stuff like that are bad for you. So
mhm.
my first step was just to get rid of as much processed junk as I could. And that made a difference. I did start losing weight. I did start feeling better, but it wasn't quite there yet.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more, you can explore our homemade natural skincare products at purelytallow.com. Thank you so much for supporting my small business. Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnival Revolution. I'm Serena, and today my guest is Jen Winkler. Jen Winkler is a coach and a friend, and I'm so glad she's here. Today we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to talk about hormones and diet and just kind of see where that takes us.
Hey, Serena, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. You?
Doing great. It's a beautiful
Awesome.
day here in Arizona.
Okay, so let's talk about your story first. What brought you to kind of a low carb way of eating? And you were carnivore for a while, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, about your transition into carnivore and then your transition out of carnivore.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So when I was 12 years old, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And then throughout my teen years, I had very irregular periods, very painful when they did come. And eventually, like 10 years after those started, probably in mid to early 20s, was diagnosed with PCOS. The medication I was on for my epilepsy, much later, they added as one of the side effects is severe metabolic dysfunction, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance. So I think the medication kind of prompted that. But that was kind of a lot of the stuff. I was overweight, acne, panic attacks, anxiety, a lot of mental health issues that I haven't really talked about too much on here, but really, really struggled during those years. So eventually, fast forward, got married. We discerned to have a child. So we decided to, yeah, so we ended up having Isaac. And during my pregnancy, I gained 80 pounds. So once I gave birth to him, I mean, obviously subtracting the baby and the water, I was 220 pounds and miserable, just the most
Mhm.
miserable of my life because there's
Yeah.
not only everything I was suffering with, but my hormones fluctuating, waking up to feed him, all those kind of things. So I think it was about 3 or 4 months postpartum where I just was like, okay, I got to change the way I eat. I know sugar is not good for us. I know like chips and
Mhm.
stuff like that are bad for you. So
Mhm.
my first step was just to get rid of as much processed junk as I could. And that made a difference. I did start losing weight. I did start feeling better, but it wasn't quite there yet. So then I decided, I think I heard about low carb. I don't remember from where. And I was like, let me just try that. But I wasn't doing it religiously. Like if Jeff made potatoes, I had the potatoes, right?
Mhm.
So I was like, I'll just try it. Again, that was kind of still the same. And then the documentary The Magic Pill came out. And
Mhm.
Jeff and I loved watching documentaries. Like now
Mhm.
it's a little different, but we watched that together and he was in the middle of a colitis flare also. So he was actually thinking of going vegan and doing juicing,
Yeah.
like complete opposite. And
Mhm.
I said, I want to try this for my epilepsy. And so he's like, yeah, I'll do it too and just support you. His colitis flare was gone within a month. And then
Amazing.
like he stopped his medications the second month. And then for me, for epilepsy, it took a lot longer because I had to titrate off my medications. So I was ketogenic. We were doing all the counting on the carb manager app. We were making
Mhm.
sure ratios. I didn't buy ketone strips till way later because I was curious. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. I didn't want to waste money. We
Mhm.
were a very tight budget. Like we didn't, it was only his income. Um, so yeah, doing keto. And then that's when keto started going strong and you can see all the keto treats in the stores, the
Mhm.
bakery. I actually worked at a keto bakery. And so I'd bring home treats and my blood sugar started going all over the place, like
Mhm.
hypoglycemic, low 50s, not feeling well. I was gaining weight. I think that's a story of a lot of people. So I said, why don't I try carnivore? It was starting to take off more. And I thought, okay, my whole purpose was because of my epilepsy. So I need to keep that in mind. I
Mhm.
still wasn't at my lowest dose of meds yet. I said, well, I guess if I keep my fat high, that's the key. So I did kind of not like 80-20 high fat, but I still kept it high, probably in the 70%, and felt amazing. Lost the most weight that I've lost. And it was good. It was very satiating. I did that for about a year, but towards the end, my hormones started tanking. And I know for me, like hindsight, you're able to kind of see what actually
Yeah.
happened. For
Mhm.
me, I just got so satiated that I could not consume enough calories. And
Yes.
that's my body. Like I even had genetic testing done and it shows that I have similar genes as not as the Inuit is what it said. So
Huh.
the Inuit, they consume lots of fat and my body apparently doesn't have the genetic makeup to do that. So by bringing in the veg, and I don't do a lot of it. I mean, when I say that, I'm more like between keto, I'm still under 30 grams of carbs, but
Mhm.
by bringing in the veg, it really helped to balance. And I don't know if it's a psychological thing or if it's just what it is. So that's kind of where I'm at now. You know, probably some veg with dinner. I do very heavy animal based.
Mhm.
So, I mean, some people are like, you're still carnivore. And I'm like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't like a label.
Yeah.
I like calling it the Jen Winkler diet because I'm
Yeah.
finding what works for me and
Mhm.
for my issues. And I try to do that with my clients too. I'm like, we can start with the skeleton of carnivore and then let's bring in the foods that work for you. And then it's the Jane Doe diet. Like, that's, I feel like what all of us should be doing. So now at this point, that's where I'm at. Reduced my medications drastically. I've lost over 80 pounds, still, 10 pounds on and off here and there the past few years. I think all of us struggle with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's worth it. And hormones are balanced now that I've brought in a little bit of carbs as well. Healthy carbs, not pizza and junk.
Yeah, that's the problem, I think. I've tried here and there to add, a few things in, but it's such a slippery slope for me. If I eat one thing that's not carnivore, then I'm like, well, it doesn't matter now. Just like that's how I
Yeah.
used to be. If I took one bite of something, because I'm an abstainer. So if I take one bite of something, that I shouldn't have before I know it, I've eaten the whole thing. And then I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter what I eat now. I've already messed up today. And
Yeah.
so I still find that that's the case with me. I've been experimenting by adding some ferments, and I think it may be triggering me
Mm,
because I go from feeling great to like by the second or third day of still eating strict carnivore, with the exception of some ferments. Before I know it, I like am craving all kinds of things. And I didn't have that for the first 3.5 years of carnivore. I didn't have any
interesting.
cravings. I didn't want any of those things. And so I'm trying to figure that out and try to balance that.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is, I will be bluntly honest, that is one area that I cannot relate to and I don't
Mm,
understand. Like I'm
yeah.
not denying that it happens to you
Hmm.
and a number of others. I mean, you're clearly sharing your story. My brain is like, I wonder if it's just the brain thinks carbs, I'm allowing carbs, so this is a carb
Hmm.
too versus you know, okay, I'm gonna have ferments and only ferments, but
Hmm.
somehow there's that connection where since I want this, now I want the others, or
Yeah.
maybe there is a physiological aspect of
Yeah.
the body. There's so much we don't know yet.
Yeah. Hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm absolutely open to the idea that it's all in my head and that, it's my abstainer brain telling me, well, it's okay to just have whatever, it may
Yeah.
not be physiological. It may be in my head where my brain is just telling me and then I fall for it.
Yeah.
I'm totally open to the idea that I'm just messing up. So how hard is it for you as a parent though with Isaac? Because like my kids aren't carnivore, my kids aren't strict at all. I mean, they don't eat a standard American diet. Most of my kids
Mhm.
don't. They're pretty aware of like my girls, if they want to have a treat, they'll say, well, we have practice today, volleyball or basketball practice, so we're not going to have that today, we'll wait until tomorrow because we'd want to feel bad at practice or at the game. So they're really good about that, but it is hard to navigate that, especially with a younger child like Isaac is. So how do you navigate that when you go to birthday parties or family gatherings and stuff like that for him?
For him, yeah. So, preface the answer of that by saying he is on the spectrum. He's
Hmm.
diagnosed autism, but it's more of an Asperger's relate. Like he's incredibly brilliant
Hmm.
and yet has very minimal social skills.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he also has ADHD too. So, which we're exploring a little bit more, some other avenues of that. But that being said, I was lucky enough to find this when he was like 2 to 3 years old, so we
Hmm.
started adjusting his diet at that time. Number 1 was no food dyes, and he knows that now. I think education is the biggest aspect. Teaching him and helping him see the connection with the foods. So if after jujitsu they have donuts from whatever, we have Bosa donuts that everybody loves here. If there's donuts there, like I have he's gotten to the point now we've educated so much, I will tell him like, do you remember last time you had a donut? What happened afterwards? Whether
Hmm.
it's maybe it was loose stools, maybe it was grumpiness, tiredness, whatever it was. And then he'll, we have that conversation. If he's like, no, I don't remember. I said, do you want me to remind you? I can tell you.
Yeah.
And it's all in love. It's not like shame on you.
Yeah.
And then once I tell him, I let him make the decision.
Mhm.
And then I help monitor, see how things are going. So, if he turns out fine because it's one donut that one time, then I'm not somebody that's gonna, I don't feel like we need to have it, but I get it. He's not quite at that age that can, so I just kind of like, okay. I do notice with him though, when that happens, then similar what you were saying, then the sweet tooth comes later on and he's like, oh, mom, I want to go get French fries. I want to go get this. And then that's when I'm teaching him, hey, do you remember that donut you had yesterday? This is why that's happening, is because
Mhm.
now you tasted that really sweet stuff. And so I let it be a teaching method. Now, in our house, we don't have any of that. We never buy it. It's
Mhm.
literally just if they are at a party or something, I'll let them have that little bit. We have livers that process things. And because our house is so, like, I'm going to say 90 something percent clean of all this stuff, his liver should be healthy.
Mhm.
I don't know if it is, but it should be able to detoxify from that once every month, 2 months, 3 months of eating stuff. So that's how we navigate it going out in the house. Since he was 2 or 3, he's been very heavy animal based. He has his fruits, he has his siete chips, almond crackers, sweet potato chips. Like we buy those kind of things in the house. And that's always just this little side thing. And he's learning to enjoy some vegetables. Like I don't force it on him, but
Mhm.
we've been doing some food therapy to help reduce anxiety around food for him because he's had that since he was little. And so sometimes there'll be some broccoli, I forget what other one he liked recently, but it's mainly that one. But
Yeah.
otherwise he's mainly animal based and he's like the stockiest kid in jujitsu. Like
Funny.
his thighs are tree trunks. It is so cool. Like I'm like,
He's
you
very strong then. So
Oh,
that's
he's
good.
strong. Yeah, he has so much muscle. And when you see the other kids around him that are like sticks, I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them, they're
Yeah.
skinny.
Mhm.
And I'm like, dude, you got some muscle, man. That's
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 awesome.
super cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. What do you tell your patients who want to know, or your clients who want to know about like keto recipes and like the keto junk food at the grocery store? So let's just say it. Even keto junk food is junk food. A friend told me that about gluten-free stuff when I first went gluten-free about 12 years ago. She was like, gluten-free junk food is still junk food. And it's true. If it says keto on the package, I always tell people if it says keto friendly or keto certified, there's no governing body that says this is keto
Nope.
certified. Run for the hills, go the other direction. So how do you explain that to people who say, oh, but it says keto on the bread on the package?
Oh, 100%. So it's funny you say this because I literally just posted a reel like
Oh, you did?
30 minutes ago that kind of touches on this topic. Basically, my premise of what I'm teaching them is look at ingredients first. So I've kind of overhauled my coaching practice and I'm still working on that. January is going to be like a whole new revamp of everything. But basically, I don't want them to track any calories, any macros, maybe macros for carbs kind of thing in the beginning. I want them to just learn ingredients. And a lot of those keto processed foods have, like you said, they're junk. Why? Because of the ingredients. They
Mhm.
still have inflammatory seed oils. They have like brown rice, tapioca syrup, like all those sticky stuff that will
Mhm.
spike your glucose more than plain sugar would. And they say keto because it's low carb compared to the standard junk
Right.
food. But it's still high carb. Like I think of the bars all the time. There's all these bars and cookies and stuff. It'll
Mhm.
be like 20 grams of carbs for a cookie.
Yeah.
You really want to waste your carbs on that cookie because then you
Mm.
can't really have much else. And it's not high fat. By definition, ketogenic is high fat and there's not much protein in it. But the big thing is the ingredients. Like I want my clients to understand what the ingredients are doing to them, which ones are inflammatory, which
Mm.
ones spike your blood sugar, and all that stuff. And then they'll understand like the ketogenic aspect because not all my clients are ketogenic. Some are low
Mhm.
carb, some are carnivore, some are just, I just want to eat healthy. It just
Yeah.
depends on what their goals are. So that's why I start everybody at that area. And then we get into calorie counting, macro counting, stuff like
Mhm.
that, depending on what their goals are and if they plateau and things like that.
So what about your people who are on a ketogenic diet? Do you recommend high fat or high protein or somewhere in between? What are the macros you typically recommend for people? And And does it depend on like if they're trying to lose weight or just be healthy, I guess. But so somebody, let's say somebody who's trying to lose weight, what kind of macros do you recommend?
Yeah, so it's actually not even about the macros, but it's about the process. So in the beginning, it's like I said, I start out with the ingredients. I say, try to keep it. You can track your food, but I'm not giving you targets. The only target I'm giving you is keep it under, depending on the person and their level of insulin resistance, either actually in the beginning is always 50 grams of carbs. And then we adjust according to how well they're doing, how much their blood sugar is improving, their weight and stuff. So that's the very first, because I don't want them to, I want to try avoid the keto flu, things like that. And there can be some, not detox symptoms, but they just feel crappy if they go too fast, right? So we'll start there, and then we get into, okay, let's make sure you're getting enough protein. Since they're tracking already, I'm like, I'll look at their food journal and say, hey, this is great. You're getting X amount of protein. That's going to be different for everybody. And most of the time I try to say at least 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. The other measurement that's easier is if you're 5 feet, 100 grams of protein, every inch above that is another 5 grams. It usually equates to about the same. So then we say, let's try to aim for that. But again, we meet people where they're at. Some people are like, this is too much for measuring. Okay, great. Try to aim for 30 grams of protein. And let's look at education. Use this 2 weeks of tracking as education. Measure yourself, whatever it is, 4 ounces of ground beef, and then look at how much it is. Is it 20 grams of protein? How much fat? So I really want them to just learn so it can become more intuitive, where I see this much of steak, ground beef, chicken, eggs, and I know how much protein is here. I know 2 eggs is not enough protein. I need 4 eggs, or I need 2 eggs and this much bacon. So we work on that education part, and then we go up from there. So looking at their tracking, I just make sure they are higher fat. Most of the time, 60 to 70% is pretty good. If someone needs it therapeutically, we will adjust. Maybe they need it a little more. But I think that's what everybody's story is, trial and error, right? Like they start at one place and then we see what symptoms are arising or disappearing and we see if we need to adjust.
And you mentioned earlier the thing about under eating, that you had an issue with under eating. I also have had an issue with under eating. And I find when I talk to people, almost all women, sometimes men too, but almost all women that are not feeling great on a carnivore or low carb or ketogenic diet, who aren't losing weight, who are tired, don't really have the energy to exercise. I find almost every one of them is because they are under eating. Do you find that a lot with your clients, that there are so many it's ingrained in us that 1,200 calories is what we should be eating. And that number is so arbitrary. It means nothing. A toddler needs 1,200 calories, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have had clients that are like that. I think it's probably a 50-50. It's actually not the majority, surprisingly. Sometimes, depending on the case, I will have them just track a week of normal food before they change. And I said, do not change anything. When you see the numbers, don't be like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Jen's going to yell at me. I'm not. I just want to see where you're at, because that'll help us to see what the next step is.
Yes.
Like reverse dieting. I've had clients that do that. And as they're increasing their their calories, as they're increasing their calories, they are losing weight. And they're like, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Isn't it crazy? You feed your body some nutrients and you lose weight. It lets go of the inflammation. So yeah, but I think it does happen. And it's really a mindset thing to get off of that. Oh my gosh, I'm eating more. Now I have to exercise more. That is one of the hardest obstacles for some of my clients, is they're tracking their workouts. And I'm like, hey, why did you work out every day last week? Oh, well, you put me on more calories, so I thought I had to work out more.
Yeah.
Oh, no, honey.
That undoes it.
That undoes it. Yeah. No, you need to rest some days. Your body doesn't want you running every single day and hit cardio and stuff. So the rest days are the days your muscles are building and your body's recuperating, and you need to make a feeling of safety with your body, things like that. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think people don't realize that if you're eating, so let's say you're eating 1,200 calories a day, you're not losing weight, your body is basically in that starvation mode that some people say is a myth, but it's not. And you up your calories to 1,600, and then you walk an extra 4 miles that day. You've then burned off the 400, and now your body thinks you're eating 1,200 calories. And I think
Yeah.
people don't understand how that works, and that it is possible to over exercise and do too much movement and kind of undo the work that you're doing.
Yeah. And it's not even only about the calories. In that
Hmm.
sense, when you're working harder, your body, I mean, you got to think the ancestral aspect. When did we run? We would run when something was chasing us and we needed to escape, or we're trying to catch the food. And
Hmm.
it impacts our cortisol as well. So if our cortisol is rising all the time, every day
Right.
for extended periods, you're not going to be able to burn the fat. So
Right.
there's the calorie aspect, but then there's the aspect of the hormones and everything going on in our bodies. And it's not, whenever I use the word hormones, people think only like estrogen, progesterone, but we have
Right.
hundreds of hormones in our bodies. So
Hmm.
cortisol is one of those. And if that's rising, your insulin's going to rise, your leptin is going to get all screwed up, and then it becomes more of a physiological aspect versus how many calories am I eating?
Right. Yeah. And people just discount that. People just think if I eat less calories, I lose more weight. And I've seen women who are eating, they'll tell me what they're eating. I'll say, tell me what you ate yesterday, like kind of like you do, like you give them a week, tell me, I just want to know what you're eating. So I tell people, tell me what you ate yesterday. And when they tell me it's like 700 or 800 calories, and I'm like, well, no wonder, you're not losing weight. But they'll say, well, I was eating 1,200 and I wasn't losing weight. Right.
Yeah.
So they eat 1,200, they lose a couple of pounds, and then they stop losing. So they lower it to 1,000. And people will say the only way I can lose weight is, if I eat 800 calories a day. Like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
you'll lose weight for like a week, but then your body freaks out because it's not enough. And women just, we abuse our bodies so much. Don't you think? Like over the years with all the different diets, all the different yo-yoing, all the different chemicals, that we're using, the toxins that we're using and stuff. We just abuse our bodies so much. It causes so much damage.
Oh, 100%. I agree. The hard part too, to kind of have mercy on ourselves, is we were supposed to trust the doctors. We were supposed to trust the pharmaceutical industry. We're supposed to trust the grocery store. Where we
Hmm.
go to get our food and where we buy our soaps. Like there was this trust, primarily like my mom's generation, because it was just introduced shortly before that. But it's like we're supposed to be like, oh, if we can buy it, it should be safe.
That's right.
We were never taught to question
Hmm.
what's going on. So now the fact we have to question everything and do our own research and be our own doctors and all that, I think that's the hard part is yeah, that trust that was there is now
Yeah.
broken.
Mhm.
And we look at our past and go, oh my gosh, that was all, like so much of that was poison, that it was screwing us up. But the best part is now we have that empowerment and the knowledge to go forward and make better choices from now on. So I try to like twist it around. I do agree with you, but it's like given the benefit of the doubt with the information we were given, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know what else we could have done.
Yeah. And as far as like the chemicals in our foods and things like that, like you just said, like we feel like we should trust the grocery store. And I've had people say to me, but that's what the FDA is for. That's not what the FDA is for. The FDA is paid off by the food companies, and they're not paid off. They are paid off, but they are funded by the pharmaceutical companies and the big food companies. And in the UK, I think it is, there are only 400 chemicals that they're allowed to use in the food, and the government, like you have to prove the safety of it. But in the United States, there are more than 10,000 chemicals in our food.
Yeah.
And you know who gets to decide which chemicals go in your food? The
The
company
FDA.
that's making your food. They get to
Yeah.
say, oh, we think this is safe. And the government says, oh, okay, here you go. You can
Yeah.
sell that. Like
Well,
there
you heard
is
about
there's no regulation on that.
no, you heard about the Kellogg's whole
Yes.
issue going on where Kellogg's will they have a healthier cereal without the seed oils, the food dyes and stuff, but it's on every other country. But the
Yeah.
country they make it in, the
Hmm.
United States of America,
Yeah.
includes horrible ingredients,
Horrible.
very inflammatory, causing hyperactivity in children, all
Hmm.
those kind of things, Lunchables, all of that stuff. They have healthier versions. I don't say
Hmm.
healthy, but healthier. This
Cleaner.
is
Let's call them cleaner. I mean,
cleaner. That's a better one.
at
Yeah.
least they use mostly real ingredients. And did I
Yes.
see California ban Kellogg's from the school system last week, I think, and I think Texas this week. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's up to, yeah, I don't remember how many. I know Lunchables is banned from US lunches now,
So
school lunch.
awesome.
So we're already getting there. And I
Yeah.
can only anticipate what's coming in the next few years.
I know there is definitely the tides are turning. And I cannot wait to see, because I honestly did not think it would happen in our lifetime. But
Yeah.
seeing this movement coming is so, like, I have goosebumps even just thinking
I
about
just
it.
did
Like,
too.
I know. It's just like the idea that the things that you and I have been saying for several years, that our family members and our friends just blow us off, like, oh, here she goes talking about food again, you know, or here she goes talking about toxins again. Like, that's coming. And I'm so excited for that. Not just to prove all my friends and family wrong, but also because I think it's going to save lives.
Oh, 100%. I like obviously optimally is to live vegetables, primarily meat
Yes.
based, those kind of things.
Whole
But
foods.
whole foods, yes. But there are people they're just not there yet.
Yeah.
So if you can eliminate those inflammatory ingredients from the processed foods they're eating, you know,
Mhm.
it's gonna make waves. You know, they won't
Yeah.
reach to that optimal point, but it'll be a huge drastic difference. Kind of like
Yeah.
when I was in high school, so during Lent, we sacrifice a certain food, right? We say,
Mhm.
or certain whatever it is, doesn't have to be food. When I was
Right.
younger, it was always food. And I gave up soda for one
Mhm.
Lent. So 40 plus days without soda. When I had it on Easter, it tasted horrible. So I've
Yeah.
never had soda since I was in high school. And
That's awesome.
that time I lost like 10 pounds in 40 days.
Just by
Just
doing
soda.
that.
Yeah, and I hear that from people. Oh, I gave up. I'm like, you lost weight. What'd you do? Oh, I gave up soda. My neighbor 2 days ago. Oh, I gave up soda and some sugar stuff. I'm like, you following any way? He said, no, I just not eating that stuff anymore. And I lost 25 pounds in the past 2 months. I'm like, well, look at that.
I
So yeah,
know.
he's still having some junk here and there, but
Yeah. Mhm.
lost tons of weight. And that's kind of where I go in my coaching is this is where we want to be. But if you can't reach this bar, let's find a bar you can reach
Right.
and then slowly reach up to that.
I love that. I love the idea of that. And I love all of these people who just give up like one of the toxic things that they're eating or drinking and they lose weight. And what you hope happens after that is they say, wait a minute, what would happen if I gave up these other things too? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really exciting to see people make changes. So how about our hormones? What do you know about hormones and the way foods affect our hormones? Because that's a big thing. And again, people discount that. And it's so cliche when you say to somebody, but if you put the wrong kind of fuel in your car is not going to run. People are like, ah. But that's true. If you put the wrong kind of gas in your car, it's not going to run. If I put diesel in my car that uses gasoline, that's not going to work. And so that's how I look at the foods at the grocery store. That's the wrong fuel for my body. So
Yeah.
how do you explain that to people?
It's very multifaceted.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
definitely not one that can fit in the next like 20 minutes. But
Okay.
in summary, it's the big thing is insulin. Insulin is a big communicator to what's going on with our hormones. Insulin rises, then the hormones suffer. Insulin is balanced. Hormones are good most of the time. But basically, what hormones are, that by definition, are chemical messengers in our body. So they are telling different parts of our body what to do and what to send where. They're literally just little postmen going through our
Mhm.
bodies. So when the hormones suffer, then the messages suffer. So one other thing I like to let people know, when we hear the word hormones, especially as women, we just think of our periods and obviously, our cycle. It
Mhm.
is so much more than that. Estrogen is responsible for cardiovascular health, bone health, and our uterine health. Progesterone is responsible for a lot of mental health. Right? Like it heals from anxiety. It helps us sleep better. So if we're sleeping better, insulin is better. So and that's just a few of like a huge list. That's one of the reasons women, when they enter menopause, not right away, but over a number of years, they start getting osteoporosis because they're lacking the estrogen that protects the bones. If a woman is on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, not all of them need it, but I would say the majority of women do. I forget what the percentage is, but it's huge, way less chance of getting osteoporosis. So those are some of the effects of it. Now, how food impacts it. Food is also a messenger. It's delivering the nutrients that we need. A lot of times we think of food as just the macros, carbs,
Mhm.
protein, fat, but it's so much more than that. I know, like, for example, with your lotions that
Mhm.
you sell, the Purely Tallow, you advertise the A, D, E, and K vitamins that are in it, something we need in our skin and our bodies. So a lot of healthy animal fats include vitamins that our hormones need to thrive. B
Mhm.
vitamins are huge for our hormones and our cycle. Vitamin A, vitamin, and then zinc is huge too. So eating those nutrient dense animal products, particularly in the fats, will give us those nutrients that help with the hormone production and sending. So that's kind of like high level, but that's kind of the gist of it.
So you touched a little bit on hormone replacement therapy. So you agree with hormone replacement therapy?
It depends. If it's a 18-year-old, 19, early 20s, I would say let's figure out why your hormones are low. They shouldn't be that low. I've heard of teenage girls getting, and I was one of them as well, where the doctor puts on birth control, which is artificial hormone replacement therapy. It's not the same as and it can actually do the opposite. I mean, if you want to get into the science of that, we can. And then I've heard of girls who are on just progesterone, like bioidentical, but they're young. I don't feel like that's optimal. It's a band-aid they can use until we find root cause, but we want to find out, why is your body not producing progesterone or estrogen, whatever. As we enter perimenopause and menopause, obviously we want to do as much as we can to optimize hormones. We want to check thyroid health. Is your body converting thyroid hormone properly? So doing all the nutrition, lifestyle aspect, do you have good stress management? Have you balanced your nervous system? Let's go through all those. Some women don't want to, and they're like, just give me a pill. Sure. Then yes, I am obviously I want to encourage the others first.
Yeah.
But I think perimenopause, menopause, it makes a huge difference. And the women I've talked to, like one client I'm thinking of, she was on BHRT when she came to me and just needed to tweak a few things. And she said, Jen, it is a night and day difference. Her anxiety was debilitating. Like she was a different person. And then she got on the BHRT, continually to adjusted. And she said, it was like this curtain that came off of my eyes. Just, I get shaky just thinking of it, because I can't imagine the suffering, the mental health. I do actually imagine, because I went through it as a teenager, but it's this unknown, unseen cross that is so difficult that people don't see. Like if you have a deformed arm or like bandaging around whatever part, people say, oh, what happened to you? But they don't see the mental health. So I think now that we live longer, we're not living till just 60 years old or something, it's very important to be able to make those years worth it, not just sitting in a nursing home, and I haven't shared this yet. I'm excited to. But my mom has been on BHRT for, I want to say, almost 3 months now. And she's 17 years postmenopause, which most doctors will not give it to you once you're 10 years postmenopause. But I knew she needed it. No matter how she changed her diet, no matter what she did, her joints were so inflamed. Her knuckles were like balloons. It was horrible. Her feet, she could hardly walk. And I said, Mom, I want to check your hormones. And the doctor wouldn't. So I did. And when I checked the estrogen, progesterone, they were non-existent. She had none in her body. So we found a local doctor who is on board with ketogenic and carnivore and understands BHRT properly, especially for someone her case, evaluated her, did the test needed. She's been on it, and the joint pain is gone finally. Her inflammation marker was creeping up over the past couple of years. The rheumatologist gave all the medications, nothing worked, methotrexate, prednisone, all this stuff. And now it's the lowest it's ever been.
That's amazing.
Since 6 years. So I am 100% convinced that for our health, for our longevity, for quality of life, that we need hormones. And if our adrenals are tapped out, which 99% of people after the past 4 years, our adrenals are tapped out from the stress, we'll probably need it.
Yeah. And I think the women, even once they're past menopause, they feel like, well, their hormones are gone anyway, since they're not cycling anymore, they're through menopause, so it doesn't matter. But we always have to keep a check on that, right? Like even as we get older, we should always check on that, because there are optimal levels for everybody at every age, right?
Yes. Yeah. There's no like, this is the number you should be in. I mean, there kind of is, like we have a range, but just because someone's in that range doesn't mean it's working, right? Like if they have all the symptoms, somebody I met with this week, she got the belly fat that started coming back after carnivore. She's getting restless sleep, joint pain, similar. Her story is very similar with my mom's. And I said, have you had your hormones checked? She's like, yeah. She gave me the rate of what she got. And I said, that's actually not too bad for someone your age, but you're having all the symptoms of low estrogen. So I would suggest checking out a doctor. And, I have a clinic I work with now, which I'm very excited about. So like we can go through that clinic, or if she has a doctor she trusts, I have no preference.
That's awesome. Earlier you mentioned Siete chips, that you buy those for your son sometimes.
Well, we used
What do
to,
you,
but yeah.
so what do you think about that? What do you think about the fact that Pepsi bought them?
50-50. So
Yeah.
someone I follow on Instagram gave me a really good perspective on it. They are a small brand. They're a small company, so they can only reach so many places. Now that it's Pepsi, it can reach a much broader audience. Now, obviously, it's not really ketogenic or carnivore food,
Right.
but it's a whole food ingredient for someone that can handle it. With that being said, there are other companies that were bought out, such as Primal Kitchen was bought out by Kraft.
Right.
Everybody got nervous. Oh, they're going to change this, they're going to change that. Nothing has changed. And it was in the contract when Kraft bought it that nothing can be changed. And all that it happened was that it made it widely available for other people to buy. So Siete, we don't know what's in the contract. They haven't revealed it. I did actually DM them and they messaged me back because some of the chips I bought had a weird smell. And I was like,
I saw that.
Yeah. And I was like, what is this? And they were actually kind enough to be like, oh, I'm sorry that happened. We'd love to send you some fresh ones straight from the place. And I was like, okay, great. They still did have the smell. And I messaged them and said, I'm curious, since Pepsi bought you out, did anything with the formulation or the packaging change? And their response was very political, where they beat around the bush and did not answer the question.
Very
So
interesting.
we trust our relationship with I forget the family's name, with the family and all this, and that was about, but they didn't say like yes or no. Like, just give me a yes or no. So we don't buy them anymore. I'm not like, avoid them at all costs. But there's other ones that are good too. Like, we buy sweet potato chips that are fried in avocado oil.
Right.
There's another brand at Sprouts that fries it in, I think, coconut oil. So like, if he wants chips, we can do that. It's just a potato. It's probably better anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I heard a lot of different perspectives about it too. We do buy those, I buy those for my family. And that's a hard one, like at first I sent the screenshot to my husband and I was like, I can't believe they sold out. And he said, oh, if it was you, I think that you would have done it too. And I said, well, at least I would have felt guilty about it.
Yeah, I don't know about if I had my own company, and someone offered me whatever millions, $1 billion.
$1.2 billion.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's a hard one to give up, but it's also your baby. Like, you created this. And that's why if I were to do it, it would be a clear contract.
Yeah, agreed.
Nothing's changing. It has to stay the same, and I would make that message known also.
Yes.
To those who follow and all, like, nothing is changing. This is in the contract. See it as
right. Yeah.
I
agree. You'd think they would do that. Like, they would have made, because they had to know that was going to be a concern for many of their customers, that was going to be a concern. So yeah, it would have been nice if they'd have sent a message out to people like, hey, relax. This was for our family, but we got you guys. We got your back. We took care of it for you. That would have been nice to hear from them.
Yeah, so that's the part that kind of makes me wonder, especially since I directly answered them and they avoided it, kind of. I was like, okay, we'll avoid it now. So
yeah, that stinks.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe another good one bit the dust. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. All right, Jen, this was great. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.